Okay, I'll call the regular meeting back to order. And this meeting of council is being held virtually with all meeting participants attending via electronic communications to adhere to the PHO orders respecting physical distancing. Council members will be involved in and participate in the meeting virtually as they would in person. For those members of the public in attendance, please note that this meeting is a live webinar and is being recorded. And a recording of the meeting will be available on the village's website following the meeting. Council members attending the meeting are required to verbally advise the chair of when they leave the meeting and return so that this can be recorded in the minutes. For clarity, if a council member does not verbally advise the chair but is observed to be absent from their video feed for an extended period of time, and it is unclear to staff whether they are present in the meeting, the council member will be marked absent until such time as staff observes the council member to reappear in the video feed. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Councillor Noble, Councillor Zant. Any opposed? Motion carries. Adoption of minutes from regular council meeting 1537 from Tuesday, April 27th. Moved by Councillor Craddock, seconded by Councillor Noble. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Any business arising? Seeing none, we have no rise with report. We have one recommendation from the Committee of the Whole 215 from April 27th, and it is the Good Food Pledge that came out of our discussion with the Squamish Food Council and in support of their work on buying and supporting local food. I think I'll read the pledge out because I think there's some good stuff in there. So the pledge is that the Committee of the Whole, or the resolution is that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that the village endorse the Good Food Pledge as follows. Whereas we recognize that the adoption of food procurement policies has the power to reform the food system, create opportunities for smaller farmers to thrive and for workers to receive just compensation and fair treatment, support sustainable farming practices, reward good environmental stewardship, and increase access to fresh and healthy foods. Therefore, be it resolved that we pledge our purchasing power to support the following good food values: local economies and communities, environmental sustainability and stewardship of natural resources, nutrition, valued workforce treated with dignity and fairness, and annual animal welfare. And that we pledge to undertake the following commitments in support of good food: to meet, to the best of our ability, the good food values definitions, to purchase direct from local farms and producers where possible, to establish supply chain accountability and engagement with vendors and distributors, and to work towards implementing good food values into our procurement policy and practices. Would somebody like to make that motion? Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Antonelli. Any opposed? Motion carries. Committee minutes, we have none, so we'll go right to 10 in our delegation. We'll welcome back Mr. Ha and Ms. Martin. Give them a moment. There we go. Welcome back, Ms. Martin and Mr. Ha. We look forward to your open meeting presentation. I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Mayor. So I'll give a highlights of the financial statements for December 31st, 2020 and the audit. So I'll share my screen. Bear with me. Okay, can everyone see that? Great, thanks. So the first thing we'll start with is the independent auditor's report. So as you would expect, it is a clean and unmodified report this year, as is in the past. This report is MMP's report. The remainder of the financial statements are those of management. The opinion paragraph is the most important paragraph, providing our opinion that the financial statements are fairly presented. Our audit was carried out in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. Our final materiality used to assess the significant misstatements or omissions identified during the audit and determine the level of audit testing performed was $334,000 this year. We confirmed to the Mayor and Council that MMP is independent of the village. So we'll start with the statement of financial position. So this shows the assets, liabilities, and surplus of the village at 2 points in time, December 31st, 2020 and 2019. So I'll just go over the highlights of the results for 2020 compared to 2019. First section is the financial assets. So cash and cash equivalents increased by $3 million to just under 8.2 million in 2020. A summary of these changes is in the statement of cash flows, which I'll move to now. So the first section is the operational activities of the village, and we can see that those brought in just over $4 million in 2020. The next section is the capital activities. So this shows the acquisition of tangible capital assets or disposals if there were some. No disposals this year, just acquisitions, just over $700,000 this year. The next section is the financing activities. So this shows the net debt repayments made by the village of $360,000. We'll jump back to the statement of financial position. So the next section is actually, we'll just finish up with the financial assets. Accounts receivable down by about $324,000 in 2020, sitting at just under 2.4 million. That's simply just timing differences on amounts received that are owed to the village. Now the next section is the financial liabilities. Deferred revenue saw an increase in 2020 of about $685,000. This is the result of an increase in gas tax collections of $149,000, DCCs collected of $145,000 on some large developments, and an increase in unexpended other grants of $373,000. Deposits and permits saw an increase in 2020 of $456,000. This is due to an increase of $395,000 in development bonds, which relates to the significant developments ongoing in the village. Finally, we saw long-term debt decrease by $469,000 due to repayments net of advances this year. Moving on to non-financial assets. Prepaid expenses increased by $102,000 in 2020. And again, this is largely just related to timing differences of payments made in advance. Tangible capital assets saw a net decrease this year of $422,000. This was made up of the $714,000 of asset additions I referred to earlier, offset by the amortization taken on these assets of $1.1 million. The final category on this statement is the accumulated surplus of the village. This balance saw an increase of $1.3 million during the year, bringing it to just under 31 million. And you can think of this balance as the net worth or equity of the village. It was comprised of unrestricted surplus of $727,000, surplus or our investment in our tangible capital assets of 26.4 million, and reserves of 3.9 million. We often talk about leverage for municipalities, and the leverage is simply the debt over the equity. So if we take our debt of 10.5 million and our equity of 30.9 million, our leverage rose to 33.99% this year from 31.7% last year. This increase is largely due to increases in deferred revenue and deposits. So simply receiving revenue ahead of time before the revenue recognition criteria have been met. So not necessarily a concern at all. We'll now move on to the statement of operations. So this shows the revenues and expenses over the past year, as well as the comparatives for 2019. So total revenue saw a decrease in 2020 of $5.1 million, primarily due to a decline in provincial government transfers that had been received in 2019 relating to the Downtown Enhancement Project. Total expenses increased by $757,000 in 2020. Many categories of expenses were consistent with 2019. During 2019, the village went in partnership with the regional district, which funds and provides recreation through a number of facilities, parks, and fields, with 2020 being the first full year of operations, and therefore saw a corresponding increase of $264,000 in 2020. Water and sewer also saw increases of $280,000 and $262,000 respectively, largely due to additional wages and repairs made during the year. The bottom line surplus for 2020 was $1.25 million, down from a surplus of $7.1 million in 2019. That brings to a conclusion my presentation. So I'll hand it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Ha. I'll wait for us to go back to our regular screen. Thank you. Are there any questions from council? No questions? How was the audit process now that things are completely remote? I know you folks used to come park here for a couple of days and spread out and go through lots of boxes. How do you manage it? Is it working well? The process is working well with our staff?
Yeah, luckily we've had, well, luckily or unluckily, we've had time to figure this out over the last 14 months. And actually this is the second round for many of our clients doing audits remotely. Definitely not the way we prefer to do things, but in some respects can be done more efficiently in this manner. We had lots of tools and resources to allow us to share documents on an ongoing and consistent basis. And so that's working well. There's definitely, for your audit, I think it went as smoothly as it could go. I think what we'll see in the future is many audits of our clients will remain remotely because lots of our clients like it, and we've figured out systems to put in place to make it work. So it'll come down to some clients prefer us being on site with them, and some prefer the remote methodology. So I think it's going fairly well, and I don't think it posed any significant challenges for us this year, mostly because, like I said, we've been dealing with it for a while.
Right. Fair enough. Well, that's good to hear. Unfortunately for you and staff, that means you don't get to spend a few days in lovely Pemberton, though. That's the downside.
That is exactly true. We have a number of client locations that we love going to. Pemberton is one of them. So maybe we'll be back next year.
That's good. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, thanks to all of you for being on the meeting and for this year's audit, and I guess we'll see you next year. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Can I please get a motion to receive the report?
Motion to receive.
Seconded by Councillor Noble. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Awesome. Okay, we're off to number 11, Office of the CAO verbal report.
I don't have anything this evening. Thank you.
Right. Then we're going to corporate and legislative services, the draft mobile food vendor pilot program policy. I declared conflict on this at committee of the whole due to my part ownership in a restaurant and food truck. So I will declare conflict and pass the chair to Councillor Craddock on this for this item.
Thanks very much, Mayor Richmond.
And I'm going to just leave the meeting and expect a text when I should come back. Is that how we're doing this? Okay.
I can put you in the waiting room again. Oh, he's gone.
Thank you very much. So we'll turn this over to Gwendolyn to present to council this evening, and then we'll open it for discussion at the end, please.
Thank you, Councillor Craddock, and thank you, Council, for taking the time to hear my report. The purpose of this report is to present for Council's consideration a revised draft mobile food vendor pilot program policy incorporating the amendments proposed by the Committee of the Whole at the April 27th meeting, and to seek Council's approval of the policy. The committee recommended that the pilot program be extended from 1 to 2 years and that greater consideration be given to the following criteria in the selection of vendors: participation by local business owners and residents, the availability of healthy food options, and local sourcing of food. So several amendments were made to the draft policy to incorporate these considerations, the first being the extension of the pilot program from 1 to 2 years. Then the requirements of the expression of interest letter were expanded to ask the applicants to address the committee's priorities and providing information on the role of local business owners or residents in the business, describing healthy meal options, and providing details of product sourcing. The selection criteria matrix shown in Table 1 was expanded to include product sourcing and sustainability as separate criteria, and healthy food options will be considered under the proposed service element of the matrix. And the weighting was adjusted so that the matrix would continue to total 100 points. And while the village does not have the authority to limit the pilot program to local participants only, staff have boosted the bonus points for local business owners and residents from 10 to 25 points. And also in the interest of minimizing interest from applicants from outside the valley, the pilot program will not be advertised through the Peak News magazine, but instead will be advertised locally through the e-news, the village Facebook page, website, and on village notice boards. Now, the village currently restricts business licenses to mobile and temporary vendors to 5 in a calendar year, which I mentioned at the committee of the whole meeting. But since that meeting, one more business license has been given out to a mobile vendor. So that leaves just 2 for this pilot program and for any other applicants in 2021. So if council wishes to encourage full participation in the pilot program, an amendment to the business license bylaw, either eliminating or relaxing the limit to these licenses, might be advisable. The pilot program is intended to be a learning process for the village and for vendors, with changes expected to be made to the policy after the first season. Staff will seek feedback from program participants and from the community to ensure that improvements can be made. And to facilitate minor amendments, a statement was added to the draft policy delegating authority for minor amendments to the CAO. This concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kennedy. So we'll open it for questions from councillors. Go ahead, Councillor Zant.
Just one quick question. I couldn't find this in the report, but Gwendolyn or the CEO can correct me. For the smaller, I believe the report only said you're allowed to have 1 vendor per space that the village has designated. Is that correct?
Through the mayor, yes. That was our plan for the pilot project. We're not anticipating a huge influx of vendors, and we just want to, at this point, try different locations. So that is the plan.
Okay, thank you. My reason behind my question is for smaller areas such as the barn or the community center where parking can be tight from time to time. I would see there being more than 1 vendor an issue as far as parking is concerned when there are larger venues going on. But that's all. Thank you for answering the question.
If I might, a couple of questions through to Ms. Kennedy. Looking at the downtown community barn, and I'm sorry, I didn't look over at the dates. Is it only going to be for the Friday farmers market for the downtown barn area?
The intention was to open it up for the summer season. However, we are leaving it up to vendors as to which dates they think would be a good choice. And we're not really expecting to fill all dates. I think there will be certainly a preference to some over others when it's busier.
Okay, because certainly I would have a concern if we open it up other than for the farmers market, for the simple reason that the Pony is setting one up across about a block away. And that area downtown is where majority of our cafes, bakeries, etc., coffee shops are located. So I would have some concern, I think, other than the Friday evening having it downtown. And I'm just bringing that up for discussion. I don't know how other people on council feel about it. And the only other point I'd like to bring up, we talked about inviting the collaborative to be involved. And I'm wondering if council approves that, we can send a letter out to the collaborative. And I see Ms. Fraser's got her hand up, so she's got the answer for me already. Go ahead, Ms. Fraser.
I did actually have a conversation with Meredith Kemp from the chamber, and she would be happy to, we will be sharing the RFP with the chamber, and she will extend it to the collaborative as well. So we already had that in the plan to in terms of advertising.
Thank you very much. And I know we talked about the committee of the whole, so I appreciate you bringing that forward already. Thank you. I just wanted to be sure. So I just want to get a feeling from other councils, if you don't mind, what your feeling is about having a food truck at the barn on a more regular basis than just the farmer's market. Maybe we could have a little discussion on that, or maybe Ms. Gilmore has some thoughts too on it.
I don't have any thoughts per se at this point. I'm happy to hear what the rest of council has to say as well.
Thank you. Councillor Noble, did you have any input on that?
Yeah, I think your thoughts on that are quite valid, that is a central location for established food places. And it would be nice if this program was hitting up other niches that aren't covered more than that.
Thank you very
That's
much.
right.
Really good points, Councillor Zant.
I agree with Councilor Noble. I was going to bring up a similar sentiment that having another vendor in the middle of downtown could be may not work out for the other restaurants that are there. So I agree with your sentiment and Councilor Noble's. I think Friday nights is adequate for the barn.
Thank you very much. Councillor Antonelli, did you have some input? And then I'll go to Ms. Fraser.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about garbage and bylaw enforcement and Bear Smart. And maybe Ms. Fraser could speak to that. If these vendors are going to be active while the bylaw officer is not around, and how we're going to deal with garbage, or whether you think that might be a problem.
Well, under the agreement, both under the business license that they would acquire, as well as under the terms of the permit that they would be receiving for the food truck policy, they are required to provide cleanup of 100 meters within 100 meters. They are also required to bring their own receptacles, and that kind of, they're not to be reliant on village receptacles. So the expectation from the very beginning is that they will be cleaning up and monitoring and appropriately disposing of all of their garbage or any waste that results from their operations. And we will have bylaw checking in with them as we go. Certainly this is a new program, and I would think that anybody who wants to participate in this program is going to be working very hard to make sure that it continues. And so their behavior and their actions are going to be really important for the village. And we will be monitoring, certainly. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any further questions from council?
If I could just get some clarification, if the food truck is coming to participate through the farmers market, they would actually be there under the farmers market mobile vendor business license and under the farmers market program, not separate to it. So if a food truck wanted to participate at the farmers market, they would apply through the Farmers Market Association, not through this program on the Friday nights. So if there is a desire to not have the vending happening at the barn during the off farmers market time, then my recommendation would be that we remove that location from the pilot project for the time being, and allow them and direct anybody to the farmers market to facilitate them being part of that.
Thank you very much. Would someone like to put a motion on the floor just to remove the downtown community barn? Moved by
Um,
Counselor Zant,
I'll
seconded by
move that.
Counselor Noble. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. And if there's no other questions, if we can move down to the recommendation from staff, and I want to commend staff. It's a great report. I think it's a good opportunity, and I hope that we have some good applicants. So anybody like to move the recommendation? Counselor Zant, seconded by Counselor Noble. Any further discussion? Anybody opposed? Motion carries, and we'll invite the mayor back to continue the meeting. Thanks very much, everyone.
I've just texted him to let him know that he can come back in.
Thank you very much.
No response.
There he is.
That means you're it, Ted.
Okay, I guess we'll keep on going.
Okay, Mayor Craddock.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I can head out.
I'm sure there's a cold one waiting for you somewhere, Mike.
Yeah. a chicken. All right. Thanks, everyone. We're on to 11C, Finance Department. We'll wait for Lena and Ms. Martin to join us again. Hello, Ms. Martin. Welcome back. We're inviting you to speak to us about the MFA Authority equipment financing around the bylaw truck and the Public Works loader. I'll turn it over to you.
Let's try that. Good evening to Mayor number 1 or Mayor number 2 and Council. And we will be bringing a report forward today to seek Council's approval to apply for short-term equipment financing with the MFA for the funding of our bylaw truck and our Public Works loader. The two items are identified under our 2021 to 2025 5-year financial plan. The bylaw truck was requested to replace the retired equipment that we previously used for bylaw services. That has since been moved to, I think Public Works might be using it here and there, but bylaw currently doesn't have a vehicle, and they're using the admin vehicles along with development and administration. So it is tight to have the 2 vehicles for 3 separate departments. And then in terms of the loader that Public Works currently has is on its, it's not on its final legs, but it is to a point where it is going to start costing a lot more to replace bigger components. And at this time we can get a bit of a salvage value for it. So we might get some money back into the system when we purchase a new one. We've also repaid the debt in its entirety for the old large equipment that we purchased 5 years ago. So the debt that we're taking out for the loader would be not considered new debt. It would be considered same to same. So year to year, we will not see an increase, decrease in our budget for the new loader. So MFA has an equipment financing program that takes place of the former leasing program, which has a lot of benefits over the leasing program in that we continue to hold the assets on our systems. So we own the assets outright from the beginning. Previously with our MFA leasing program, we used to have to buy to, lease to own in the end, and we didn't have ownership on them for 5 years. The rates are also considerably lower than banks, and there's no fees and taxes. The local government pays down principal payments, and we can make additional principal payments. There's no penalties, administrative fees. The amortization period can be 1 to 5 years. For both of these loans, we've put in a request for a 5-year loan as identified on our 5-year plan. And there's a variable interest rate with a fixed payment schedule that gets caught up on the last payment of the loan. So our payments don't change, so we can budget and program accordingly over the next 1 to 5 years. And in the last payment, if interest rates go up or down over 5 years, it's caught in the last payment. So currently the interest rate to secure this loan, it is a floating interest rate, but it currently is only 0.93% for us to borrow. And we've included schedules to show the interest against the values of both the bylaw truck and the loader. So for the bylaw truck, the full interest paid over the term of a 5-year loan is just over $1,000, and then in the full repayment of the loan. That's looking at an annual cost of about $9,200 per year to completely pay off the bylaw truck. Now, the municipality recently looked into some quotes for a truck back in 2020, and there are varying programs for fleet purchases with different vendors, and we'll go back to those vendors and see what we can get for our money that still matches both good environmental impact and follows with the needs of the bylaw services and being able to house dogs and create a little bit of transportation for that bylaw truck. And the new loader, again, it is a rather large purchase. However, we may see some salvage from the old loader, and what we'll start to end up doing is paying more for the old loader if we don't replace it soon. The impact on this year's 2021 budget is $5,375 for the 2021 year for the bylaw truck, and that's because we haven't purchased it yet, and we're looking at just about a half year's payments. And then the public works loader is $32,847, which lines up with the debt that's retiring around this time. So those payments will stay roughly the same. So our recommendation is that we take a 5-year loan or a 5-year term on the bylaw truck for $45,000 and a 5-year term for the loader for $275,000. Are there any questions?
Go ahead, Councillor Craddock, and then Councillor Zant.
Thanks very much. One question and one comment. Do we not have any capital reserves for either the truck or the loader?
We don't have any equipment specific loans or reserves for the either or. We do have reserves in water that we were using for our water truck that we still have not found the right water truck for, but we don't have administrative reserves for equipment currently.
Okay, and the comment I have is the previous council meeting talking with Mr. SEMA, we decided that we would be keeping the old loader and stationing it out at the sewer treatment plant. So I don't think we have any trade-in value on that at all if we're going to keep it.
Okay, so that's great. That keeps it in the system without it being the main loader for snow clearing and such. Mr. SEMA will probably speak to that a little bit more. I know we were looking at some higher costs to do some replacement and some safety improvements on the cab. And that was the reasoning for getting a new loader for full-time.
Councillor Zant.
Thank you, Lena. That was a great report. Just one quick question in regards to the bylaw truck. In previous meetings, we've spoken about moving our fleet, or the VLP's fleet rather, to a energy efficient fleet.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I know this is more probably Nikki's position, but I'm just wondering if there's possibilities to start moving the fleet that direction, starting off with this bylaw truck.
I think at the time when we discussed perhaps adding some electric fleet into our system, it was identified that we'd need to put in the infrastructure first in terms of charging station for our municipal hall. If our municipal hall in the future was going to change, it can be a bit of an investment to put in a charging station, and we do want to have one at the office if we're going to do it for our fleets. So in terms of an electric truck, I don't think we're at the place yet where we could be looking at that. It's not to say it's not in the future plan. I do think we have charging station and a municipal hall review and design currently, and looking at that on our 5-year plan as well. And then maybe we'd be looking at when the RAVs, the administrative trucks, come forward, maybe we could be looking at replacing those with an electric vehicle. We definitely will be looking for as green a truck as we can get and still support bylaw to do their services that they need. And there are some good trucks. There are some eco design trucks, and we'll be looking for something of that capacity or to get what we can get best for our money. Definitely with an ear to a greener truck.
Thank you. And Mayor Richmond, if I may, one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just in regards to, you mentioned that the loan would be over 5 years, is that correct?
That's correct.
In the past, are we able to, or has it been, or have we had to extend that loan, or can we extend that loan if we have to, past 5 years?
The term of the equipment style loan is maximum of 5 years.
Okay.
So we would only do 1 through 5 years. We have the benefit of signing up for a 5-year loan and repaying early. If we see interest rates changing, for example, we can choose to pay off a loan in its 3rd year or its 4th year without penalty. If we were looking at longer than 5 years, we would be looking at having to go out to the public to ask for a review of that loan. We have 2 other areas that we can borrow, take on liabilities under 2 different bylaws. However, those are currently occupied, so we don't have any flexibility there. And those would be 5-year loans as well, to be honest.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to support or reinforce Councillor Zan's comments on a green vehicle, recognizing we don't have the EV infrastructure right now, but a good hybrid, a good green truck, hopefully we can work the budget to allow for that. So. Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Craddock.
I'll move recommendation 1.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Opposed? Motion carries. And would somebody like to move the second recommendation around the loader? Councillor Noble, second by Councillor Zant. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Okay, thank you very much.
Have a great night. Bylaws, we have none this week. Mayor's report, we have a short one. Get rid of
Oh,
I know, right? All right, I can wait till the sun goes down. Really, you know, the main meetings and calls I had have been with VCH and health officials, and those have been centered all around vaccines. I won't repeat information you guys are getting or that I've sent you, but you know, on numbers and outbreaks and that sort of thing. But the good news is the supply seems to keep climbing slowly, and they're opening it up more and more. The Pfizer now is being allowed for 12 and up, which is a great development. And basically my input or my conversation over the last couple of weeks, well, going back a couple of weeks, was more around, first it was frontline workers like firefighters and bylaw and that sort of thing, and then we got all them through. And then it was around grocery store workers, and we got the pop-up clinic and grocery store workers vaccinated. And recently I've been in contact with the Chamber and Tourism Pemberton, because at the end of last week, there was an announcement after a lot of pushing from a number of us that other public-facing employees get prioritized in the rollout as supply increases. So, you know, F&B workers, tourism-related, tourism operators, accommodations, retail that include tourism. So that was the push, and I'm just going to go off my screen here and go to my email. While I was off in conflict, I got another email in response to mine from VCH. So I was inquiring again. Squamish and Worcester was announced that all these sorts of workers were going to get prioritized. So I've been asking to make sure Pemberton is included in that, and I got a response about an hour ago. We're asking, and this is from VCH. Hi, Mike. We're asking frontline workers to register using the code. They will then be able to book their vaccination at a clinic. There is a clinic in Pemberton this Thursday, and we're scheduling another vaccine clinic in Pemberton for the following Thursday. Then they asked me for some rough numbers of the type amount of workers that we might be looking at just for their planning. So that's good news. In addition to the age-based rollout, which is speeding up as we go, it looks like people in front public line facing jobs will be able to get their vaccine over the next couple of weeks. And I believe that will be 18 and up for that prioritization. So good news, I think. And I've sent that out both to the Chamber and to Tourism Pemberton to make sure they spread it to their members. Other meetings have been some of the ministers' meetings with Minister Bear was a teleconference that we had, and that was pretty much centered around connectivity. My contribution was that our connectivity in the village of Pemberton is great now. What we would really like to see and what I pushed for, and I think I got a good response, was getting better cell phone range up the Duffy Lake and on the highways around our community so that people that are traveling our roads are able to connect and more safely. So that's something I pushed for, and they said that Highway 99 to Duffy Lake was one of their priorities for getting cell service, recognizing how many tourists are driving that road. There's also apparently some of the infrastructure grant announcement we've all been waiting for are going to start to roll in at the end of May, is what we were told. So we'll see what happens there. Pardon me. Also meeting with Mr. Farnsworth. This was mostly around the restrictions, and it's interesting that the narrative is not necessarily changed, but it shifted back and forth from a couple of weeks ago, being how do we make sure people respect the restrictions and respect the stay in your community message and don't come up, and now the conversation has shifted back to, okay, how long are the restrictions going to be in place? What is it going to look like when they're going to get lifted? How much announcement are we going to get in advance? And will there be the resources to support it as things open up again? So I don't have any groundbreaking news for you. Everybody's waiting to see when restrictions do get lifted, obviously. It's been a tough few months for businesses, for sure. A tough year and change for everybody in businesses, but I think a lot of businesses were hoping that they would be seeing a little more activity by this time this year, and it's still not here. So it's been a struggle. So it was tough putting out that message to say stay away again, and now we're hopeful that we'll be able to really soon be able to say welcome back. And so the conversation, again, with Minister Farnsworth and others, and the conversation with our colleagues up and down the corridor, Squamish, Whistler, Leetwat, has been about, how do we welcome folks back? How do we do it responsibly? And how do we join forces to try to get other levels of government to give us the resources we need to manage the visitation we're expecting, later in the summer, whether it's June or beyond. So just so you know, we continue collectively to push for more resources from the RCMP to manage the Sea to Sky corridor. We talked about motorcycle traffic accidents last year at our last meeting, and just the pressures on the highway. So we've, MOTI, RCMP, and others, we are trying to get more boots on the ground. On Thursday, I'll be speaking to our resolution at LMLGA regarding the impacts of tourism and getting more of those resources to protect our area, to protect our backcountry. We want to welcome folks back. I look forward to it for all our business owners to be able to do that. And we want to do it in a safe, responsible way. And we need other resources. So we're asking for those resources. And again, I look forward to hopefully being able to welcome folks back in a healthy way so that everyone, including all our residents, can enjoy the summer and our businesses can profit, and that we can protect our backcountry from wildfire and trespassing and everything else. So yeah, I think that's about it for me. Any council reports? Councilor Gatt.
Thanks very much, Mayor Richmond. It's really not a councilor's report, but a safety issue has been brought to my knowledge, and talking about the RCMP's report at the last council meeting, and you just mentioning about accidents on the road with motorcycles and potentially bicycles. We did ask at that meeting about road sweeping, and brought to my attention again today that between Little Wet and the Whistler, other than the one bridge, it hasn't been accomplished this year, nor have they done the road through the community. And for those people that have businesses along the road, Bike Co and the Pony and others, that dust and gravel that's on the road right now is really hard for young kids and even someone of my age to go down, and you're always in that gravel when you're on the road. So I'm not sure that maybe we need a follow-up letter to Miller and maybe CC the minister and our MLA, just like last year. Remember, we had such a hard time, and it was, I think, if I recall, it was late June or into July before they finally got around to it. And I don't think that's acceptable. So I just want to throw that out as a comment. And then I have a question, and that maybe to you and Councillor Zant through Pivas. Who is responsible for cleaning the Friendship Trail Bridge? Because it has a lot of gravel on it. And is that something that's in the maintenance program, or am I going to have to take a broom out and clean that myself?
Well, I think that's a really good idea, but pass it over to CEO Gilman.
On the first one, I don't mind following up with their contacts at Modi to have them put some pressure on getting the roads and the gravel cleared. We did that last year, and that seemed to get some action. So I'm happy to follow up and work on that right away.
Thank you.
The bridge is actually in the ownership of the village for the Friendship Trail Bridge. So that's something that I can follow up with staff and get some sweeping action happening on that portion as well.
Thank you very much. And I was hoping if we can do it, that we could do it with our little Bobcat with the sweeper on front. I wouldn't want someone to spend the whole day out there with a broom like I had thought I was going to. So, okay, thank you very much for both those.
Okay.
That's all, Mayor Richmond.
Motion to have Councillor Craddock sweep the bridge.
Well, I think
That was fast.
yeah.
Any other council reports?
Richmond.
Councillor Zach, go ahead.
Thank you. So there was a cemetery meeting a couple weeks ago. Really not much to report there, except that they were really, really happy with how the cemeteries turned out. There's some ongoing maintenance and just trying to find contractors mowing grass and whatnot. Columbarium should be going in, getting registered, and they are subsequently increasing the fees. A library meeting I attended, which was quite educational. We had a speaker, Lois Joseph, and wow, what an amazing woman to speak with. She has such a huge knowledge of the language, of their language, Little Wat Nation. I won't try to pronounce it because I'll will likely get it wrong. But she is a wealth of knowledge, and she's lived in the community for tens of years, and she's being used as a consultant to help the library write their land acknowledgement statement for the beginning of their meetings, to acknowledge that the library operates on unceded territory of the Little Wat Nation. So that's going back and forth between the council, or between the board members at the moment. But aside from talking about the acknowledgement statement, just the amount that I learned about Little Wat Nation was excellent. And what a knowledgeable woman. It was fantastic to have her on that meeting. And then I attended the Sea to Sky Destination Education Initiative Zoom meeting today. It was about an hour. I got 45 minutes in, and then I had to jump off. But there was a lot of good things that they've come up with. I won't hit on all of them because the report was quite lengthy, but some of the big ones were how they're trying to help the different communities they've spoken with. A couple of the high level points were, the two that I picked up on is workforce sustainability, and i.e. the workforce that lives in the towns that are mostly affected or have a lot of tourism. They're trying to, part of their initiative is to figure out how to help the workforce live in those communities. And the other one that I picked up on was how they're trying to collaborate with local businesses, specifically local businesses, and try to help them through, especially through the pandemic at this point, but also moving forward after the fact to just to support those businesses with marketing strategies. Throughout their process and surveys, they came up with 39 objectives that they want to complete. The one we specifically spoke about today was number 5, which was improving the Sea to Sky Corridor destination education. So in other words, how to get it out to people that if you are going to travel and do some backcountry hiking, what do you need to take with you? Who can you contact if you get into trouble? You know, pack it in, pack it out, all those sort of coin phrases. The 5 key messages that they did come out with for this was respect. So in other words, respect where you're going, respect the people who live there, respect the history, respect the trails. Basically just go like you were going to your own house. Pack it in, pack it out. Know before you go, which was another big one, and be responsible. And then the pain points they brought up, there was over a dozen pain points that they've surveyed and come back from the corridor, from the survey recipients from the corridor. The 5 that I picked up, ones that was unmanaged camping. And the big one there is people, when they're not in campgrounds, they typically leave their trash there, which, as we all know, can be bear attractants or animal attractants, which comes back to waste. Increase in search and rescue calls, which can be quite heavy on our search and rescue volunteers. And then the one that also came up is, which we've advocated for in the past, is not enough park rangers to enforce the bylaws of the parks, whether it's parking, people staying on trails, you know, human waste, dog waste, and so forth. So, but they're definitely pushing to market the corridor, but at the same time, they want to do it sustainably and try to make people responsible for, if they come to visit, then they're not leaving a negative impact on our communities. That's my council report.
Thank you. Is anybody, or we could do this offline, but it would be great if somebody can attend the second session of this that Councillor Zan attended today on Friday, I believe it is, Friday afternoon. So unless anybody wants to throw their hand up right now, but it would be really great if somebody else could participate and provide VOP input on it. Any other
It's at 10 o'clock, isn't it?
Is it 10? I can't remember offhand.
Yes, it's at 10. And just so council's aware, we do have Ms. Murphy, a member of our staff. She will be attending.
Right. Any other council reports? Seeing none. Correspondence for action, we have none. Correspondence for information, would anybody like to pull anything out? Seeing none, motion to receive.
Motion to receive.
Seconded by Councillor Noble. Any opposed? Motion carries. Decision on late business. Late business notice of motion. Question period. For those in attendance who wish to ask questions, please click on the raise hand feature in the webinar controls. This will notify staff that you would like to ask a question, and they will unmute your microphone when it is your turn to speak. Please be reminded that only questions directly related to items discussed during this meeting are permitted. Ms. Kennedy, do we have anybody?
There are no questions.
Thank you. Okay, then I will look for a motion to recess the regular and go back in camera. Councillor Craddock, second by Councillor Noble. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, we are back in regular now.
Yeah, we'll reconvene the regular and no rise with the report. So I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Antonelli. Any opposed? I dare you. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. There's still a little bit of light left out there.